Show from Southern California. This is The Ryan Ries Show. Post your questions using @RyanRies on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. Are you ready?
All right, it's going down. We have a epic story that's going to be told today. As you guys know, some of you guys have seen my I Am Second on YouTube or IamSecond.com. That's our family over there. They do amazing stories, and they constantly putting out amazing people's testimonies. I think they honestly do it the best out there. My radio producer sent me this film recently of this gentleman named Joey Kelly, and I've heard a lot of stories, and as I started watching this thing, I literally started choking up and crying through multiple parts of this story because it just hit home in so many ways. And I know a lot of you listeners that tune in weekly with us are going through, and I know because I get DMs, we get emails, going through trauma and dealing with unforgiveness and trying to find, just know if there's a God that can help you. And I truly believe today that as you tune in and you listen to this story, what you're going to hear is you're going to hear how this man went through some stuff, but how God, brought him through. And there's going to be a lot of life application stuff that you're going to apply to your life. And I truly believe if you do apply these things to your life, that you will see a transformation. But there has to be a process. So I'm excited to have him on my show today. So thanks a lot for being on. It's awesome to have you, man.
Brother, so glad to be here.
So as we get into this, you live out in Texas. You're out in Austin, Texas.
That's right. The cool part.
So you were born and raised out there, right?
Yeah, they call us the unicorns. There's not many like true Austinites born and bred. We're mainly transplants in this city, but I'm proud to call Austin my hometown.
That's awesome. Yeah, especially everything that's going on right now. I don't know if you've read the news, but from California, all the U-Haul trucks are sold out, and everyone's heading to Texas. And I think Austin is it's one of the fastest growing cities right now. I think I recall reading that in the news in America, and a lot of people are exiting from here, going there. But literally, U-Haul trucks were sold out. So you guys must have a lot of U-Haul trucks over there, and they're not coming this way, I can tell you that.
Hey, I used a U-Haul the other day, and yeah, it looked like they had plenty in stock.
That's awesome. Well, man, I want to get into your story because, with the limited time we have, but why don't you tell me a little bit about you just growing up out there in Austin and then just kind of leading into basically, hanging out with your cousin.
Yeah, man. I come from a big family. I'm the baby of 5 kids, which was wild and super fun. Was really close with all of my cousins as well. Let's see, grew up in the church, in the Episcopal church, which is kind of like a step over from Catholicism. So very traditional, not totally my jam, honestly. But yeah, always was hanging out with my siblings and my cousins, for sure.
So, what's it called? Episcopal? What's it called?
Episcopalian.
So that's a step over. So you grew up. Was it kind of a rigid system growing up in that environment?
Yeah, for sure. Very traditional. Oh man, just the old hymns and the organ. And everything. I honestly, it just wasn't for me, I guess. Like, I don't feel like I got a lot out of it. Like, I don't even know if I heard the gospel all that much.
Right.
And it wasn't until a little bit later hearing the gospel from my sister that I feel like that I actually got saved.
So when you were growing up and you were going to church, there wasn't really anything kind of penetrating you as you were going to this church. Were you ever like looking like growing up, did you ever look at the things of the world like you were trying to get out of it, or you just didn't really know the gospel until you had that conversation with your older sister?
Man, yeah, I feel like I never heard the gospel until I was 7. You know, I actually did go to Sunday school with my grandma. Shout out to my grandma who recently passed. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think the teaching was just connecting with me at that church. But yeah, my oldest sister, Amanda, shared the gospel with me. She went to a summer camp, Camp Travis here in Austin, Texas. And she just came back from camp super fired up, with the gospel on the tip of her tongue. And she knew she had to sit me down and just laid it all out there. And I remember it being just crystal clear. It's nothing about what we can do to earn our way to God or earn our way to heaven. It's everything about what he did to come to us, the finished work of Jesus on the cross.
So how old is she at that time?
She's 7 years older than me. So if I was 7, she had to be 14.
Got it. So that's pretty awesome how she just came in and was like, hey, we need to sit down and you need to know the gospel.
Totally. She has a big heart. And man, it's even if you're excited about anything in life, you know, you just you can't shut up about it, you know, which is a testament of her awesome heart that was just on fire for the Lord. She had to tell everyone she knew, you know, especially her little baby brother.
That's awesome. That is so cool. So as you were growing up, what kind of stuff were you, what were you into out there in Austin? I mean, you have a huge family. I mean, it has to, and you're the youngest?
Yeah, I'm the baby of 5, man. So, man, sports, playing ball in the street for sure. Super fun. You know, when you're the baby of 5, there's you have to get creative with how you have fun. There's not a ton. I don't know. You just get creative having fun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Just playing sports in the street, making up your own fun kind of deal. Maybe getting into a little trouble, but nothing too crazy as a little kid.
Well, what about you and your, when I heard your story, but you and your best friend is your cousin, right? And me growing up, me and my best friend were my cousin. That's another thing that I related to in your story. My cousin's 1 year younger, but we grew up doing everything together. Was that the relationship that you guys had?
Yeah, pretty much. You know, Mikey was 3 years younger than me, but he lived 3 blocks away. And cousins, like you said, man, they're the best because it's like your brother meets a friend, you know?
Yeah.
And when you get annoyed with each other, y'all go to your own homes. You know, you have lots of sleepovers too, but
yep.
Your brothers get more on your nerves than your cousins do. You know what I'm saying? It's more like a friend, it seems like.
I know. I just got back from breakfast with my brother, and he was getting on my nerves a lot, you know? We're a cousin. It's different.
Hey, I hope he watches this and calls you out for that.
No, it's so true. Cousins are awesome. So you and your cousin, you guys are having sleepovers, hanging out, you know, getting into trouble, just, you know, having a good time. But there is some stuff that was happening during that time that your cousin's parents were kind of in the middle of getting a divorce, and you guys I think you were doing a sleepover.
Yeah. So that's the major tragic event that kind of affected a lot of my life. So, and it's a big part of my testimony for sure. Should I jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I would like. I mean, we could talk a little, but we could talk about a couple more things leading up to that. But I definitely want to talk about, you know, this event that happened and the process of you overcoming to speak into this, because I think it's a heavy subject with a lot of people these days that are dealing with this kind of stuff, these tragic events that never have any healing. But your story has this healing process to it. But what were the things that led up to this moment?
Yeah. So probably some trigger warnings out there for some people.
Yeah.
But my cousin's parents were in the process of getting a divorce, and I was just 12 years old, and he was 9 years old at the time of this tragedy. But yeah, we're doing sleepovers all the time, it seems like. And I actually wanted him to come sleep over at my house, but I don't know, he kind of got his way. And I went to go sleep over at his house one night, December 2nd, 2000. And the night that I happened to randomly be spending the night with him, about to drop a bomb on your viewers here, is a night that his dad, who had been kicked out of the house, broke into the house, and I can give however much detail you want me to later, but he ends up murdering his wife with a knife in her sleep, like a surprise attack in her sleep. I'm asleep. I'm like half awake, half asleep, dreaming. I can hear my Aunt Phyllis. She's screaming for her life. I'll never forget. She's screaming, "Mikey, Joey, help, please, anyone, God, help."
Wow.
Over and over again. And Mikey pulls, I'm still not fully awake. I'm like, I feel like I'm half awake, half asleep again. And Mikey tugs on my leg and he says, "Joey, come help, come help, come help." And I follow him out in the hallway. I'm like, "Mikey, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on?" And he slips away from me to look into his parents' bedroom, and his dad comes out with a butcher knife and blood all over him. And he looks at me and he looks at Mikey, and this man, he's a big dude too. He's probably 6'2", 240, proceeds to tackle his 9-year-old son who's tiny, and he stabs him in the chest and he slits his throat multiple times right there in front of me. And sorry to give some of the gory details, but
this is really traumatic. I mean, you guys are, this is like the crazy, this is like you were saying, it was like out of a horror film. Here you are, he's 9 years old, you're 12.
That's right.
And you wake up in the middle of the night and all this stuff starts happening. You gotta be in shock almost, like paralyzed almost.
Totally. There was a moment of that, when Mikey is being stabbed. I like to reflect back, like I swear, like I wanted to help, but I physically couldn't move, and like a professional would tell me, like that was me being in shock.
Right.
I couldn't move. I couldn't even like run for my life. I was so frozen, solid, stiff, to the point where my Uncle John just slowly got up off of Mikey and slowly walked over to me, slammed me against the wall. At this point, like a light flashing before your eyes kind of thing. And I just remember thinking, okay, this is how I die. And I think I can see myself in the screen here. I put my arm up like this, and I'm a believer at this point. I feel like I'm talking to God, and I'm at this point just saying, "Lord, just make it quick. I just want to make me just die quickly." And I completely had given up on my life, and he tries to stab me in the chest, but he ends up going through my arm. My arm happened to just kind of block it like a shield.
Right.
And the knife went through my arm, and it just barely scratched my chest. And he's just trying to stab me real quick, multiple times. In this part, I always feel crazy explaining this part, but he's trying to stab me multiple times. And as soon as he takes it out, again, keep in mind, like I haven't been able to move for like the past 45 seconds or so. And I've completely given up on my life, and I'm just ready to get stabbed multiple times. And I don't get stabbed, and I look up. I know I sound crazy when I say this. I look up, and my uncle is no longer on top of me, having me pinned against the wall. He is 8 to 10 feet away from me, like to my right. And I remember looking up and seeing him over there now and thinking, how did I get over here? That's so weird. I look down at my arm. My muscle is literally falling out of my forearm. I can see the striations on my muscle. And I like put it back in my arm, and I'm like, okay, I think I got to hold this like above my heart. And I run downstairs, but I believe in miracles just as much as anyone in the world, I would say, because I experienced one that night. God just intervened, or I don't know, a guardian angel or something, like a spiritual force saved me from dying that night. I'm more convinced of that than anything.
I I totally agree with you, and I totally believe in that God can do that and do a miracle for sure. I mean, it has to be a miracle. That's just really intense and crazy. When you were looking at your uncle, I mean, was he coherent? Or, I mean, this sounds like he was completely, I mean, when someone's like trying on the murdering spree, you got to be looking crazy and out of your mind. I mean, did you guys make any kind of eye contact during this process to see what he?
Yeah, it's crazy you asked that because I run downstairs, I grab the phone and I dial 9, and my hand is literally going like this 9-1. And then my uncle's getting too close. I put the phone down and I'm like, I'm going to come back to that phone and dial 1 more 1 and the police will be here maybe. And then there's this moment where he got too close. So I dropped the phone. He rips the phone out of the wall and I'm like, well, shoot, there goes that plan. And I'm just slowly walking backwards in the kitchen and he's slowly walking forwards in the kitchen. And we're not even far apart. We're probably 4 or 5 feet apart. And I'm at this place where I'm begging for my life. I'm saying, John, you don't have to do this. Please stop. Like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. Like, I don't know, begging for my life. Yeah. There's this intensely fierce, evil look in his eyes. He says no words to me. And honestly, the only way I know how to describe it, or I think the most appropriate way I can think of is, it felt demonic.
Yeah, totally.
It felt incredibly evil, just a total determination to kill and destroy everything. The story goes on that I escape. Obviously, I'm here today.
Yeah.
He blew the house up. He lit the house on fire, and he barely escaped with his own life. And he has burns on his body. So he was just out to totally destroy that night.
So you were able to get around him in the kitchen and run out of the house.
There's like a middle big pillar kind of thing happening in the house that the stairs are in the center of the house.
Yeah.
And like, it's like you kind of, I could kind of go on and run,
right.
One way around the house. And then we do that game. You know how kids, the way I described it is kids are playing tag around a bush.
Right.
And you kind of just see which way the person who's it is coming. And so we play that game. I tell people, I really couldn't tell you if it was for 5 minutes or for 30 minutes.
Yeah, totally.
It felt like forever. I have no concept of time. What I do remember is there's blood everywhere. Yeah. And I'm like thinking, dang, I feel like I could bleed out if this doesn't end soon. And I hear him go up the stairs for whatever reason. And I'm like, this is my chance to make a break for it. So I'm able to escape out of the front door and get to the neighbor's house.
Wow. God's grace and totally demonic stuff. I've been around probably, I don't know, 13 to 15,000, not 1,000, 13 to 15 demonic possessed people in our tourings and stuff. And it's just they got that look in their face. They're kind of like glazed, black eyes.
Yes.
And they're looking through you, and it's just demonic, and you could sense the presence of the darkness when a demon manifests in a person. But Satan, what does it say about Satan? He's come to steal, kill, and destroy, and was his whole mission. So you get out of there, you get saved. When you were just talking about your cousin and your aunt, that's the part where I got really emotional when I was watching, earlier, is because, your cousins are like your best friends, and I couldn't even imagine. I started thinking of that, what that could have looked like for me. And that's something that would be with you for forever. And now that you come out of it, what was how'd you deal with this? I mean, this is like major, major trauma. You're 12 years old. I mean, this is big time stuff that's happened in your life. What was the process to overcome or to heal or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, it was long and complicated for sure. You know, I was as a 12-year-old, it's like how do you even begin to process that? You know, it's incredibly heavy, traumatic. I wouldn't wish it on anyone ever to witness your best friend, your cousin get murdered by his father right in front of you. You almost losing your life as well. It was heavy. I was so mad at God. I I remember just going into my backyard and like cussing out God, like my little brain, and I can understand why I felt this and thought this. I couldn't understand how a good God would let evil win in such a big way that night. It's like God, where were you? And the weird thing, the ironic thing kind of is that I know he was there because he saved me.
Yeah.
I felt his intervention. Like I literally felt like I got pushed out of the way, but like I saw the destruction and the murder of my cousin and my aunt had been murdered in the other room. And I heard her screams until she died. So I was so mad at God. And, you know, like my mom had a pastor come over and prayed for us kind of thing. And I kind of bring it back to my sister, Amanda, who led me to Christ as a 7-year-old when she came back from camp. And she just felt with me. She gave me some incredible empathy, and she understood where I was and I was having an incredibly hard time. And she just encouraged me, Joey, God lets us make decisions, even if they're horrible. It's a good thing, but it can be a dangerous thing too. He gave us free will, and our Uncle John just made some really stupid, evil decisions. And kind of like we're saying now, I reflect back and I think there were evil forces at play there. There's no way around it. It really sucked. But just remembering that, yeah, God gave us the free will, and that's kind of the way the world works. And people are awful and sinful and make horrendous decisions sometimes.
What were some of the side effects this had on you during this time? Were you getting, night terrors, anxiety, depression? What were the effects that were to come along with this?
Yeah, man, totally. I think it's fair to say that I've suffered from everything from post-traumatic stress to anxiety, some depression, guilt for sure, both like survivor's guilt, like, God, why am I the only one that made it out that night, you know, and guilt that I didn't just try to fight my uncle off of my cousin, you know, like part of me wishes I would have even just like lost my life, like fighting for my cousin. Cause that's like an honorable way to go.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But man, I was scared of the dark for a minute, cause this was a surprise attack in the middle of the night.
Right.
And I'm a child. I was like scared of windows. I'm like, someone's going to break into our house.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. All those things.
I was scared of knives. I actually have an adopted brother from this family. That's my fourth sibling, to make it a total of 5. And he was a 16-year-old. He was living with his dad at the time, and we were concerned that he was going to be dead when we went to that apartment. But he's this big, strong guy who kind of looks like his dad, and I was scared of him for a little bit. So definitely had some kind of irrational fears from it for a while.
So what was the process of you to go through this process to kind of walk it out? Were you meet with people regularly? Was there any counseling? You know, obviously God, you know, the relationship with Jesus is number one, but obviously counseling and Christian counseling and all those things, they all point to Jesus. That seems to be the only way for this healing of this sort. What was the process that you can encourage people with that maybe be going through some kind of traumatic events in their life?
Yeah, man, I'm definitely a huge, huge fan of counseling. I think everyone, period, should like go to counseling at some point in their life. Like I'm bummed there's like a stigma around counseling for a lot of people, but it's so good to just talk to someone for sure. As a sixth grade boy, 12 years old, my mom did take me to this counselor. And, I actually reflected back with her some recently in process. I felt like it didn't help that much. But my mom encouraged me recently. She said it actually did help a lot with my PTSD, and I did overcome like a lot of my fears of, I don't know, the dark and being around big windows or whatever, knives. With that being said, like, I do think I, bottled a lot of stuff up, and all of my siblings are actually amazing believers and did all these incredible things in high school, so I try to always be involved with like the youth group kind of thing and FCA. It was a little bit of a front. I was a little bit of a poser and hypocritical for sure, and chase some of the things of the world, but really getting amazing community around me in college, and actually having another huge breakdown in college led me to seek out some more counseling, this time a Christian counselor, where it was like gospel based. That was like the foundation, was super, super helpful for me. So especially in college, when you can process a little more maturely with a counselor, and having an amazing community of believers around me to just encourage me and remind me that God saved my life that night for a reason, right, and I can't let this life just go to waste, helped me really make like a 180-degree turn in college.
So yeah, what I'm hearing from you is you weren't isolated. And what you probably see, and what I've seen through conversations and people around you that have experienced traumatic events, it's almost like the enemy, he does, and it's not almost like, he wants to get you isolated. So you're in your mind, and you're dealing with all these fears and all this stuff that he's put in your mind, so he could take your mind captive and keep you depressed and keep you anxiety and keep you with post-traumatic stress disorder and all these different things. But what God wants to do is he wants to bring you into a community where you could have a conversation, you could break open the scriptures, you could read, you could be encouraged and around people that are going to lift you up and encourage you to move forward. And through the transformation process through the work of the Holy Spirit and the Word of God, that's where God will get a hold of your life, transform you, and walk you through this healing process. And anyone that knows, whether you've been divorced, like I was divorced in my previous marriage, or, different addictions or footholds or strongholds or whatever you've been through in your life, it's a slow process of healing. It's not like this magic pill, or like, Jesus is a genie. You just rub the genie and, hey, I need this. It's a process through the relationship with him and through the work of his Spirit in our lives. He will renew and transform us. And that's pretty much, it sounds like what you were getting through the scriptures, through counseling, and being surrounded by people. After the break, we're going to be coming to the break right now for a few minutes, but I want to continue the story of this cleanup process, of this renewing of the mind and heart, and then God calling you and using you in this time for what he wants to do in your life. So I want to plug a couple things. A lot of you guys that are listening, go to the Whosoevers. Contact us. We are still booking tours. We're going to actually be out in Texas soon doing an Easter event. It's called the, I can't even think of it, some saloon out there. The bartender or the owner of the bar invited us to come out and share the gospel at a bar in Texas, in Houston. And they're not even Christians, but they love what we do and how we present the gospel. And they said, hey, Easter, that's like a whosoever thing. That's like, it makes sense for you guys to be here. We're like, yeah. It's called the Wildcat Balloon, I think. We'll be out there, so Go to the Whosoevers, look us up, get the date, come out, hang out with us here in Texas. And if not, book us to come to your city to bring the gospel to the streets. Wherever there's an open door to get in front of non-Christians, we would love to be there. We'll talk to you guys in 2 minutes.
More of The Ryan Ries Show coming up. Post your questions at Ryan Ries on his Instagram, Twitter, and or Facebook.
Hey, it's called a Wildcat Balloon, right? We're going to Montana to Great Falls.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
We're going to pick up Sonny.
Move my stuff.
He's the co-founder of the Whosoevers movement, so this is going to be sick because I haven't been on a Whosoevers tour with them forever.
We can't get into schools. Let's just go to what we know, skate parks and whoever will have us.
This is a tour in the middle of the pandemic, so these are the obstacles that you're going to run into. This is our only last day to get the word out for kids. Because tomorrow, if they don't know it's tomorrow, then they ain't going to be able to make it. We're going to get the flyers out to them today, and that goes down tomorrow.
The whole community of Great Falls, Montana is going to come out. Everywhere we go, people have heard about it. It's been all over the news, and they all said we're rolling out.
With the way y'all talk to us today, it seems like y'all really understand what we go through, you know?
Now, back to The Ryan Ries Show.
All right, thank you guys for tuning back in. And you know, right before the break, I was talking about us being out in Texas. It's called the Wildcatter. It's a saloon out there. We're going to be out there in Easter bringing the gospel. So they normally have, about 400 people out there for their events. And they invited us out to come talk about God in a bar. And we actually spoke out there. We were out there about a month ago, and we did like a night event. And I remember us walking in there, and they're like, yeah, go ahead and tell your stories, and, you could talk about the gospel and all that. And we were all kind of going, oh, shoot, how's this going to go down in this bar? And we ended up telling the gospel, and we're like, hey, if you want to receive Jesus, come forward. We want to pray for you. And we just saw hundreds of people come forward in this bar. We were tripping out. Now that God opened us the door to go back and do an Easter event. So just when I thought I heard it all, I get invited to go speak at a bar on Easter. So I'm really excited about this. So come out and join us at the Wildcatter on Easter, and it's going to go down. So right before the break, I have Joey Kelly in studio. I was talking about how he has a film on I Am Second. So definitely go out to iamsecond.com and check out all those cool stories as well. But Joey, right before the break, we were just talking about how you were going through this healing process. You were 12 years old. Your cousin was 9 years old. You were doing a sleepover, and in the middle of the night, his parents, they're basically in the middle of a divorce. In the middle of the night, his father broke into the house and murdered your aunt, and you actually heard her screaming for you guys, you and your cousin, and you guys ran in there, and then he proceeded to attack and basically murder your cousin, and then he came for you, and by God's grace, he ended up stabbing you. By God's grace, you got away, and you were just talking about this process of being traumatized with fear of the dark, fear of big windows, knives, just all this trauma that was in your life. And then you were going through this cleanup process of allowing God to work in your life to help you walk through this. Because there's, as we were talking before the break, there's a lot of people that have had traumatic events in their life. And it can range from all different things in their life. But a lot of people don't get help. They just try to, like I did in my story, is I went through divorce, the girl I love, abortions, all these different things in my life that there was a lot of trauma. But the way I took care of it is I just put a bunch of cocaine up my nose, a bunch of alcohol, and made tons of money and lived this crazy life of just pleasing the body appetites through sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the music industry. That didn't fix the problem, though. That created a bigger problem because I still had my problem, never got that fixed. But then I had drugs and alcohol and porn addiction and all this other stuff connected to it. So it just turned into this massive problem. But you, on the other hand, you did things the right way. And that's what we want to focus on tonight, is going the right way. You didn't isolate yourself. You basically got surrounded by believers. You got connected to Christian counselors. You got plugged into church. You're a man of the word, prayer, and you were around people that would encourage you and that got you so far. But then I want to pick up where you were in college, because when you got to college, things kind of resurfaced, right? These things that you kind of were, these things that were in your life, they resurfaced in your life, you said?
Yeah, so I actually did my fair share of messing up as well in high school. You know, I feel like I still was holding on to this bitterness of what, like, towards God, towards what he let happen to me in that night, and how evil won in such a big way, I felt. So I feel like this feels like cheesy Christian talk, but like this hole in my heart. And I was just trying to fill it with anything and everything that wasn't Jesus,
Right.
you know? So I'm the baby of 5 kids, and they were all these amazing Christians in high school. So I was involved in some Christian organizations, but I was definitely a pretty big hypocrite and was chasing, partying, drinking, smoking, and took it too far with some of these girls I had relationships with, and was just, I felt like I had the right to go crazy, you know, and
Right.
considering everything that had happened to me, I'm just going to go do me and fill this void of not living with God for something else. It's kind of like I knew what the answer was, but I just want to go create this life for myself. And yeah, fill this void, and like maybe even like, I don't know, numb the pain, you could say, trying to like take it all in control with my own hands. And then it wasn't until college where I had like this breakdown moment, like a psychologist said when I was a kid, like it's going to hit you later in life at 18, 21, 25. I popped my head into church. I hadn't been in a minute. And then something about amazing grace, man, probably because I was living a pretty sinful life at the time. And I just felt overcome by the grace of God. And I just like wept. Like I was an 18-year-old grown man, and I just like was totally broken and got hit with that wave of grief, and was just so upset, and like felt like depression coming back on, and just again wept all day. Like when it says Jesus wept, I feel like I understand that as like nonstop, uncontrollable crying for hours. And I was like, dang, I need help. Like this isn't it. This ain't it. I need to go back to counseling for real. I need to get with a Christian. I'm going to try a Christian counselor this time that can incorporate the gospel, speak that over me. And I just need help. And so
there's 2 things. Sorry, I want to jump in here really quick, because there's 2 things I want to ask you a little bit more about that you said. You were saying earlier you felt like you had a ticket to go out and live like this because of what happened to you, because you were a victim of what happened, and you had that ticket to go out and live this lifestyle. Was that, you felt like you had a ticket to just go self-destruct and just put all this stuff into you because you were that victim?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel like self-destructing at the time.
Yeah.
You know, it felt like, man, if all these other people get to go get wild, you know, if anyone has the right to go do that and go get drunk, get high, like it's me, because I've actually been through stuff.
Got it.
Kind of deal. So I'm gonna go have my fun. I'm gonna go get mine. You know, I'm tired of like living in this, I don't know, like box, or trying to be this good kid, or like live up to people's expectations of me, or the ones that they had of my siblings passed on to the little baby brother kind of thing. But ultimately, like none of that filled me remotely, you know, like it's all, I like to think of it as difference between like gratification and being satisfied, satisfaction. It was like just very temporary highs, temporary funds. And it just leaves me feeling like even worse
always
than I felt before. So it just left me feeling like nothing, like I was like a shell of a person.
And what about the waves of you saying that, how your psychologist or your counselor said that these waves would come back when you're 18, you're 21, and they'll keep coming back through your life. how would you speak to people that are going through that? Because I personally, like, I've talked to people where they're doing good, and then all of a sudden there's just like it's like another episode of their past. What would you like to say to people that are dealing with that? How can they overcome those moments?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. What's coming to mind is I feel like it can be like daunting thinking about like a wave of grief could overcome me, or like they could live in anxiety of that. But I think a different way to look at it is just to have an expectation that not every day is going to be a good day. And I can't just go around completely compartmentalizing myself and being happy all the time, 24/7, 365. Like there's going to be hard days. Like there's going to be a hard month, and just like being prepared for that and like knowing like what to go to when those times come, you know, like the high school me would like go to like drinking or smoking maybe. Right. Whereas like the college me, you know, I'm like coining it now that I'm seeing it, like the 3 C's, you know, it's like Christ, counseling, and community. Like using those tools around you to kind of lift you up when you're down, like knowing what to go to that's actually going to help and not leaving you feeling empty.
Yeah, you need those tools. So now, because we have about 14 minutes left of the show, and I want to talk about how God has pulled you through. It's a process. Obviously, you're not a super saint. You're not perfect. You don't have you have good days, you have bad days, like everyone else. But what has God done in your life? What's the call that He's put on your life? And now, what are you doing these days?
Yeah. Kind of going off of what I was saying earlier. Like I feel like I've experienced a lot of what the world has to offer, you know, with these temporary pleasures. And it all left me feeling empty and unsatisfied. So I made that major 180 in college and started I made a decision, like, I'm going to see what it's like to really live for the Lord and just like kind of see what happens, you know? And that's when I was surrounded by even more amazing community. And I was able to start a Christian fraternity chapter at Texas A&M University. Awesome. With my best friend, Ben Meadows. And it grew to 100 guys, which was incredible to watch its growth. He was the president, I was the vice president. And that was just really fun and cool to see God work through there and the fruit there. I've been a part of summer camp ministries. I worked at Camp Pine Cove my second summer in college, and that kind of rolled into my sister and I, Allie. She always had a vision for starting her own Christian sports camp because she got saved at a Christian sports camp. So I've been a part of our Christian sports camp ministry now for going on 12 years, CG Victory. She has a company, Camp Gladiator. Then their CG Victory is our nonprofit Christian sports camp, which is doing amazing work. I'm still doing development work for them right now. So it's cool to get to do that with my sister, who's one of my best friends. And God has been so good, man, turning my life around. I've met my wife on Hinge, the dating app, a few years ago, and we're married and we have a sweet baby boy now. So been through a lot of hard times, plenty of them, but God has been so good and so faithful, you know, and just been so blessed ever since. I don't even know if I remember your question. I feel like I kind of rambled on there.
That was good. I was just asking you how what God's doing with you now in these times. So He's using you with this nonprofit to do this camp. And I think camps are crucial because, you know, when I think about when I was younger, I did go to a couple camps, but you get these kids out of their day-to-day around, maybe they could be around all this noise with their friends, you know, that they're caught up in who knows what, you know, but you pull them out of this environment, you take them to this hill or this mountain top experience, and they get away from all the noise and they're able to connect the dots. There's that time where they're able to connect the dots to Christ, and it's crucial. And they might give their life to the Lord at that camp, but the word never comes back void, and that's an opportunity for a Christian kid to bring their non-Christian friends, or just for that Christian kid. Like, even like I'm a pastor's kid, okay? So, and my daddy's a mega church pastor, so I've always kind of was like, nah, forget this. I don't want nothing to do with, this stuff. But I remember going to a couple camps and getting out of everything and being up there with some cool, youth pastor or whatever, and being able to hear what they're saying and to connect and like just to be alert of God and to, the words to sink into my mind and go, man, I do need to change my life. I do need to give my life to Christ. Yeah, so with the camp, it's important to be able to get kids out of this noise and out separated from their friends and just to hear the clear message of the gospel and to spend time away from everything and let the word of God sink in. And even though, like I was saying, even though maybe they don't go back and live for Christ, those seeds have been planted and God will water them. And then also with you guys going into the colleges to Texas and developing that discipleship program for all those, started to 100 guys. I mean, if all those guys catch on fire for God and they get discipled correctly, I mean, they're going to disciple more people and the thing's just going to spread. So all these tools are crucial, especially for this younger generation, man, because everyone's so caught up in their screen time and distracted. It's like we got to get them to that old school thing. We got to get them to the camps. We got to get them to meet together and not be separated. It seems like technology has separated everyone, where we need to get everyone, and then even the whole coronavirus and everything, the churches is empty. No, we got to get everyone back together and in community for discipleship and encouragement through the word, and that's where people truly develop. So it's just really awesome to see how God is using you. It's so awesome too, because someone with your background from all the trauma and everything, the world would be like, well, you're going to be on antidepressants your whole life. You're going to, good luck, basically. Hopefully you'll be able to pull through all this, and, maybe you'll be able to get off the bottle or, off the weed or whatever it is. But here you are. God has set you free. He's transforming you. And we know that the word of God renews our mind daily. So as we read the Bible daily and we're plugged in, God will continue to transform you, and he'll show you the plans that he has for you. So I'd like to say this to the listeners, and I want you to actually talk to the listeners as well, is that maybe you have gone through trauma. Maybe some bad things have happened through your life. Maybe you've been through a divorce like me, or your parents have been divorced, or you've been in a crazy murder situation, or who knows whatever it is the trauma is. You might feel like you're in a rut. You might feel like you're in a grave. You just feel like you're dead, but you're just walking through this earth, just a dead man, like empty, like you were talking about. God can transform you. That's not the life that you have to live for the rest of your life. God can change you, but you have to trust the process, and you have to ask for forgiveness. You have to receive the forgiveness. You got to receive his grace. You got to press in to a relationship with him and talk to him and use these tools that he was talking about. These tools, Christian counseling is good. Go to the church, go meet with a pastor, have them lay their hands on you and pray for you. Anointing you with oil, it talks about in James that they will be healed if they confess their sins. Like, all these tools exist, but you will stay in this rut if you don't act out and use these tools that are available. And that's the one thing that I see is a lot of people don't use these tools. They just complain, they get drunk, or they just keep acting out because you're acting out of what's going on in your heart, basically. Whatever's going on in your heart is what you're seeing as the actions coming out. But they need to press in, they need to ask God, and they need to use these tools. Is there anything that you would like to speak into the audience for the next 7 minutes or more? Just kind of what you would like to leave them with to encourage them.
Sure, man, for sure. That was a good word too. I was here for that preaching, brother. So way to get after it. I guess a couple more thoughts here is that forgiveness is so huge. I spent a lot of my life really, really mad, at God even, which doesn't even make a lot of sense. But at my uncle as well, he took my best friend, my cousin from me, and my aunt, who was like a second mom to me. And I was just so mad at him and just wish he would die kind of thing. He almost killed me. He killed them. And I'll never forget, a pastor told me in college that he was like, man, forgiveness is just as much for you. It's, it's even more for you than it is for him. Unforgiveness is like a foothold that Satan has in your life that will help you to just that will like keep you rather from never being able to move on. And that was powerful. He said, when you forgive, like Christ calls us to forgive, you're going to be able to move on with your life. And that doesn't, and forgiveness, I want to say, doesn't have to look the same for everyone. I don't think I'm ever called to meet with my uncle. He's in a prison in Huntsville. So I'm not going to meet with him. I feel like I can say confidently that I have forgiven him. I still need I want to write him a letter. I don't want to be pen pals. But it can look different. It doesn't have to be in person, especially if you're a victim of domestic violence like I was, if you don't feel safe for being in the vicinity of that person. But I think that's been a huge part of my healing and moving on for sure. And another thing I'll say is I feel like I heard a lot from people around me, even as a kid, like after this tragedy happened, they're like, hey man, this is like a good thing. Good things are going to come from this. And their intentions were good. I think they were like kind of misconstruing Romans 8:28. For God works all things together for good for those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. But that's what they were off on, is they said, this is a good thing that happened. And that couldn't be more further from the truth, right? It was a horrible tragedy that happened. It was an evil act that occurred. So please, don't call it a good thing. But Romans 8:28 says that good can come from it, and that we can become more Christ-like from hard or even horrible things that happen to us. So just trying to change a perspective there was helpful for me on those two things, for sure. The 3 C's, man: counseling, Christ, community. Total game changer. And what else was I going to say? Just this overwhelming feeling that God saved my life that night for a reason. It's like, I can't waste it. I've chased all the things of the world. Nothing gave me real joy, but living for the Lord is where the real joy is. And I'm still here. God saved my life again. I have to live for him. I can't let it go to waste. And for anyone who's struggling through trauma or depression, I feel like an encouragement, a word I may have for you is you're still here. You're still fighting. You're still on this fight. You are more seen and loved than you could ever know or imagine, especially by God the Father, through Jesus. So it's always worth it to fight and hang in there and seek all these things, even fighting for community and fighting to forgive someone. Taking the step to go to counseling. These are all hard steps, but they're more than worth it.
Yeah, I love all that was amazing, what you said. But the unforgiveness, which you were talking about, that will eat you alive, and that will make you a prisoner, and you will never be able to move forward in life because the unforgiveness, and that's one of the biggest traps that Satan will get, that foothold or that stronghold in your life. And it literally, even bitterness too, it's medically, it releases stuff in your stomach, and it jacks you up. This is the stuff that will literally tear apart your life and your mind, because every time you see someone, you hear their name or whatever it is, it's just haunting you, and Satan just feeds off that in your life. So crucial, you have to ask God to help you forgive people. And there was a girl in my life that I married, and I couldn't, she jacked me up so bad. And I'd see her, or I'd hear her name or whatever, and it would just, all those feelings would just rush back like a flood. But I had to keep asking God to help me to forgive. and forgive, and then it'd pop up again, their name, then I'd have to forgive again, and it's just a process of years, but it kept going down more and more and more. If you've probably noticed, rather than not asking God and just dominating and actually growing, it actually grows. The more you buy into it, the more it will take over. So ask God to help you, and through the work of the Holy Spirit, God will transform you. He will help you to overcome, and he will give you new thoughts, and he'll give you a new mind, and he'll give you a new heart. But it only comes through a supernatural work of the Holy Spirit, but through reading the Word of God, because the Word of God is his voice. So read the Word, pray, which is talking to God, and allow him through his Spirit to work from your life. Just like as you see the wind blow, that's how the Spirit works. You just see the effects on your life. You don't see the Spirit, but you see the effects on someone's life. So, dude, thank you for being on the show. We're coming to the end. I'm gonna send you my information. Let's when we're in Texas, we're going back and forth. I'd love to just hang out, grab some coffee, grab some food, some barbecue, whatever. But thank you again for being on the show and hanging out with me.
My guy, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Have a good time.
Awesome, man. All right, you guys. So go to the whosoevers.com, get all the past radio shows, go to our YouTube, click follow, and you could get shows for the last, I don't know, man. We have these things have been on the radio for about 6 years now. Click, get all the shows, and go to I Am Second and check out all their testimonies. Peace.
This has been The Ryan Ries Show. To connect and find out more about Ryan, click on ryan-ries.com. Check us out next Saturday at 9 p.m. for The Ryan Ries Show.